Allison Rhodes, and these are my audience members. All right, thank you all for coming out tonight. I wanted to inform you guys tonight about a way to approach those who struggle with processing challenges in their brain. When dealing with these types of people, it is important that we ourselves have a peaceful heart. And what this means is making sure that you don't have any conflict, that you are just able to talk with them through their challenges and not be angry with them in any sort of way, and just be super calm and nice to them. What this looks like for me is when I have a clear mind, and that there's nothing that can bother me, nothing that can get in the way of me helping them with their challenge. The second thing that is important when dealing with this is to have what we call tough skin. And this means having a demeanor that if they were to say something offensive to you or something hurtful, it'll just kind of bounce right off of you. It won't affect you in any sort of way. And why this is important is because when people like this are in the state of mind that they're frustrated, they're worked up, they're overwhelmed, they say a lot of things that they don't mean. I mean, we all do that at some point. But for these certain types of people, it's a little harder for them to control their thoughts and their words. And so when dealing with them, that's why it's important to have tough skin and make sure that you don't get offended. The third thing that's important is to make sure that you slow things down. They tend to get very overwhelmed with small tasks. So anything that's a small thing to you or to me gets them super worked up and overwhelmed. And so an example of this would be if you're in class and your professor says, all right, your homework this week is to write an essay. And you're like, all right, how long does it need to be? Is it single space, double space? What does it need to be about? All those kinds of questions start coming up, and it's very overwhelming because you don't know anything about the essay besides the fact that you have to write an essay. So for people with processing challenges, this is how they feel when you give them a simple task such as go clean your room. All of a sudden they're like, I don't know what that means. And so for them, instead of just saying go clean your room, it's important to be like, hey, we're gonna go upstairs and we're gonna go into your room, we're gonna make your bed, then we're gonna pick up all the clothes off the floor and put them in your hamper. If there's clean ones, then we'll hang them up. Then we'll push in your chair, and then we'll vacuum the floor, and then we'll empty the trash. And make a list for them and slow it down and break it down so that they don't get overwhelmed, because essentially that is what's going to help them to not get worked up to a place where they're unmanageable and hard to work with. The fourth thing that helps is proximity. Standing close to them, making eye contact, and so that they can understand that you're there for them. And this is typically when someone is already worked up, when they are in a place where they can't function in their mind, they can't process. For them, if they can understand that you're there, that's super beneficial. And what also helps is if you put your arm around them. Physical touch, those kinds of things, it really helps. And it's very important that you yourself stay calm. It can be very easy to get overwhelmed and worked up when working with someone who's overwhelmed and worked up. But if you stay calm, that will help them because they will know that everything's okay and you're not mad at them, you're not frustrated or anything like that. And it's important to compromise and be flexible with them. Sometimes when they're overworked, overwhelmed, just kind of in a bad place, they don't want to get up and they don't want to do anything that they're supposed to do. And so as the person dealing with them, it's important that you try and understand their feelings. And so it can be very frustrating to deal with people like this because they're not listening to you and things like that. But try to understand where they're coming from. They have a challenge, it's a mental health problem that they literally cannot think and process through things, so they get overwhelmed. And if you do what we call the 80-20 approach, which is compromise with them. If they can do 20% of the load, then you do 80% of the load, and it's as long as they're doing something that will help them get their mind working, and they can then process through the thing that they need to do. The next thing is to make sure that everything is well communicated and clear. If things are foggy, if they don't make sense, that's going to send them off. That's going to get them into a bad place or put them further in a bad place if they already are in one. And so making sure that you're talking to them and communicating very clearly. And what helps with this is what we call forecasting. And forecasting is when you are simply just telling them something that's going to happen in the future. So here's an example. If I'm talking to my friend Bob, it would look like this. Hey Bob, I noticed that you just laid down on the beanbag, but I'm really feeling like I need to play some basketball. How about I let you lay there for about 30 more minutes and then we can go play some basketball? And by doing that, it gives them time to process, to lay on the beanbag and get that rest that they were looking for, but also to be able to get up in a reasonable amount of time and to go do something. And not just springing it on them is what makes it hard. After this all happens, if you need to go through all these steps, the hope is that this person will then be in a clear headspace where they'll work with you. They'll be willing to compromise. They'll be flexible themselves. And the way you can tell that someone has calmed down, they've processed, they've been able to work through it, is if they're happy, if they're motivated to do what they needed to do, and if they're cooperative. If you're talking to them, asking them to do their 20%, and they're denying and saying no, they're not ready. They haven't processed through it, they haven't calmed down. And so you continue and you can just keep cycling through all the steps until they're in a good place where you can work with them. The most crucial part in dealing with someone with processing challenges is to follow up after your conversation with them. After you're helping them to process through their challenges, you have to follow up. And whether it's, congratulations, you did very good at working through your problems, I didn't have to help you that much, you did a lot of it on your own, I'm very proud of you. Or whether it's, this didn't go so well, what's something we can do next time to make sure that you're able to work through it? And when you do this, it helps them gain confidence in themselves, and it helps them to just be happier with how things went. I do believe that this is something that's very crucial to our society. If we can all learn how to deal with people who have processing challenges in their lives, then I do believe that our society will be more accepting, it will be more cooperative, and it will run smoothly. And thank you all for coming to my speech.